It's been a long goodbye. All this week, ABC has been honoring longtime interview star Barbara Walters in the lead up to her formal retirement today. She is one of the very few who can say, quite simply, I've done it all. And she's leaving, she says, before she overstays her welcome. Barbara Walters was born in Brookline and grew up surrounded by celebrities. Her father ran nightclubs. As a result, she was never in awe of anyone. Good thing.
When I think of political people, I think if I had to choose the person who I admire the most, it would be Anwar Sadat.
Barbara Walters moved up through the ranks at NBC's Today Show, eventually becoming its co-host.
Barbara Walters, who has been on the NBC Today program for 13 years, signed a contract with ABC.
She was wooed to ABC by the legendary television master, Roone Arledge, and given a painful first woman-ever opportunity to co-anchor a network newscast.
When I went to ABC as the first female co-anchor of a network news program, I had a partner named Harry Reasoner.
I have a new colleague to welcome, Barbara.
Who did not want me, and I was a failure.
While that did not work out, everything else did. From a long-time stint on ABC's 2020, to her interviews with prominent world leaders, to her entertainment specials,
the amazing Barbara Walters,
to her creation of the popular daytime show, The View.
I'm proud of The View because I created it, and it will be on when I'm no longer there.
This morning, Walters was joined by all her former View hosts along with TV's most visible women in television, including Oprah Winfrey. In the end, Barbara Walters leaves in style.
I just think I've had the most blessed career, and I never expected it. I hope I have the sense to realize how good my life is and not just think of how good my life was.
That is a great line.
Yes, it is.
And she's always thinks about what she's going to say. I went back and I looked at that interview I did with her when she was on her book tour. And I know politicians and professionals get into a rut, but she didn't know what I was going to ask her. And she was so polished and so deep and so thoughtful. And I think that's really has been the key to her success. And she dared to go downscale. You know, Callie, you knew her too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she'd go off and do horrible things like that baby giveaway, you know, these 5 couples vying to adopt the same child. And her name is on that thing. Mm-hmm. But she also did the big interviews, as she said, Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat and Ted Kennedy, and on she went.
Well, I've written a commentary about her this week, having worked with her at 2020 quite closely. And I remind students when I speak to him that she's one of the best writers in the business. You just cannot beat that woman writing. And preparation, whew, she is a researcher bar none. No pun intended. She is not kidding around when she's preparing for those interviews. I always say to people, by the time she sits down in front of you, she knows more about you than you know about you.
All right, I just got to jump in and interject a skeptical note, and I want to try to do this respectfully, and then Dan and Josh and all the rest of you can correct me. I found, and I don't know her work as well as you guys do, incredible body of work. I found her interviewing style to be frequently too soft. I think if you're someone like her and you have access to the people she had access to, a big part of your job is making them sweat and making them uncomfortable. I think of someone who I was a big fan of, or am a big fan of, at least in her earlier incarnation, Oriana Fallaci, the Italian reporter, who was famous for her combative interviews with people like the Shah and, you know, Henry Kissinger. Not everyone can be like Oriana Fallaci, but Barbara Walters, I thought, you know, too many of her questions were softballs. That said, terrific career. Kudos to her. We should all be so lucky. No, have at it.
No, and it's certainly true that it's interesting that we go back to Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat and Ted Kennedy, which are 30 years ago. Certainly the pace of her interviews shifted more in the direction of celebrity and more in the direction of entertainment over the years. So that it's kind of difficult to get a lens of the full body of work from that context. But I think she played an important role in, first of all, bringing empathy to television news, to have that sort of role of which is a controversial role, to be an interviewer, but also to be a confidant in the same sort of context. You know, she was important in bringing that in. She was also significant in sort of collapsing the high and the low. You know, the same person would be interviewing world leaders and, you know, a Kardashian. Yes. That mix is something that, you know, you can't imagine Mike Wallace doing the same sort of mix.
Well, he did. He did Barbra Streisand.
Sure.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah.
I have to confess, I've seen shockingly little of Barbara Walters over the years. Very little. I do think that ABC would have been better off if they had found a way to have things work out with her on the anchor desk. But as we kind of saw from that clip, Harry Reasoner did not seem real.
There was worse stuff.
I mean, that was really quite remarkable. She has had a great career, and I hope she has a great retirement. But I honestly have almost never seen her.
All right, let me push back on you a little bit, because somebody else made this point today too, but I thought they were absolutely true that some of the other women interviewers, Katie Couric, Diane Sawyer, go after these people in the same way, but it's very saccharine and like with a false simpatico. And when your brother was in the World Trade. Barbara Walters did not do it that way. She had some of their questions may have been softer, but she reached into, she touched people in a way without this kind of false sympathy.
I think that's fair, and I, given a choice, would much rather watch Barbara Walters interview someone than Diane Sawyer. I definitely prefer her technique.
I agree with that.
And then she also would ask the questions. She'd really try to get to those questions that people had not been asked before. So if you were known for, walking across, some famous park, she didn't start off, how'd you feel when you walked across the famous park? I mean, she came out with you with something else. She really, really did her homework, so I have to give it to her.
And also, I went back and looked at, for instance, that Monica Lewinsky interview. She made me squirm. She was asking tough questions.
Yes, she was.
But Monica Lewinsky, good point to note, Monica Lewinsky wasn't a head of state. She was this woman who got caught up in this tawdry affair. So I would have liked to see more of that with, say, Bill Clinton. But maybe it's there. I should go back and review.
Yeah, I think it's hard, you say, to look at the
And I got to say, and since talking about Jill Abramson, she owns her product. A lot of those programs, Barwell Production, she created, she owns. Hello.
Yeah, she's all right.